Well, I'm going to give you a hypothetical here, Joe. We're going to fast forward to 2022.
Okay.
All right. David Ortiz and Alex Rodriguez will be on their first years on the ballot. And then you have maybe Bonds and Clemens still there. What are the chances if you see those four guys that have some type of connection on some level to PEDs, or at least the very least suspicion, all getting in together as one class?
That would be a wild class, wouldn't it? It's interesting because the next 2 years, there are some great players coming on. Chipper Jones,
right.
Jim Thome, and
Omar Vizquel.
Yeah, Omar Vizquel. Lots of guys next year, lots of guys in 2 years. But then there's a little bit of a gap where there are not great players in 2020 and 2021 coming on the ballot. Mariano Rivera's coming on. But other than him, nobody else is really coming on that is a sure Hall of Famer. So I think that it's going to pare down, and it is going to lead up to a period where that's going to be their last year on the ballot. You're going to have Ortiz on there. You're going to have A-Rod on there. That's going to be really interesting.
Now, as you know, there are two ways to get into the Hall of Fame. You have the baseball writers, and then you have the Veterans Committee.
Right.
There are some guys who have already been basically penalized for their association to PEDs by the writers. How many do you think, maybe like, say, a Mark McGwire ends up going in through the Veterans Committee? Or Jose Canseco?
Here's my prediction. None of them will get in through the Veterans Committee. I really think if they don't get in through the BBWAA, because I think the Veterans Committee is going to be even harder on steroid use because the players are very angry about it. There are several current Hall of Famers on that committee.
So what's been their reaction to these votes and these guys going in or getting close to getting in who are associated with PEDs?
There have been some who have had a very strong public reaction against it. Most have stayed fairly quiet about it, but I've talked to a few off the record quietly, and they're not happy about it. I mean, they really feel like the steroid thing hurt baseball and hurt the game, and they feel like it hurts the Hall of Fame. But you also have to add the point that Hall of Famers generally are pretty skeptical of anybody joining them.
Right.
That's just sort of the way they are.
Well, I thought Tom Verducci brought up a great point in that there are now writers who are voting for Hall of Fame. This year, for example, had Hall of Fame ballots who didn't cover the steroids era.
Right.
So do you think maybe with the Veterans Committee down the road, say maybe a decade down the road, where they're also disconnected from the steroid era?
Well, there could
maybe they will push some of those guys.
There might be some players who were from this era who will be a little bit more lenient. I mean, that's certainly a possibility. But you look at the history of the Veterans Committee, especially the last 20 years, they don't let many players in. Last time they've let a living player in the Hall of Fame was 15 years ago. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's not an easy way to get in. I'll tell you the guy who I think will get in through the Veterans Committee, though, fairly quickly is Fred McGriff. That's one guy I've been keeping a very close eye on. I think Jack Morris has an excellent chance as well. So there are a couple of guys who I think will have a really good chance of getting in the Hall of Fame, but I think it's going to be tough for those PED users.